Hello and welcome back to Genesis Designs and Modelcraft, and welcome back to the Advent build of the Arma Hobby 48 scale P-39, and this is the second instalment. So this is the result of the second session at the bench on this kit, and you could be forgiven, initially at least, for thinking not much has changed. You'd be right in some respects. So the fuselage is not glued together, it is just taped. I've been playing around test fitting things again and some more. The wing still works, we're happy with that now. And I am actually pretty much at the stage now where I can put this fuselage together, but I will show you what has gone on. I'll just take off the tape. Just before I do take it apart, you can see there I do have the 3D printed nose piece just sitting in place there, and I'm quite pleased with the way that fits. It certainly doesn't look too bad at all, and that is in no small part thanks to the trimming. The corners in this angled area here did need to be trimmed out on both sides to allow that to fit, but it does fit very creditably. Let's take that out. And the last piece of tape. And there we go. So, what I've done since we spoke last, basically washed, detail painted, dry brushed the cockpit is the largest part of what I've been up to, and then constructed the wheelbase stuff onto it. So here's the cockpit itself. The dark colour isn't helping, but I'm hoping that'll be visible on the main video. I can't see it very well on the small screen, but essentially I have used Tamiya panel line accent colour, and I used black on here. This is such a dark green that using a sort of dark grey just wouldn't have shown up, so I've used black, applied in the normal way, buffed off with a cotton bud and a little bit of odourless thinner as per, and then I've dry brushed the thing, and I used, let me get this right, Abteilung cream brown for German yellow is the colour I used. And I do, when I dry brush, like to have a very dry brush, so it picks up the detail and adds a bit of highlighting, but you don't really get that sort of really bright edge thing too much. Well, I try not to anyway. So that's the cockpit, and I think the 3D printed seat looks really good. I think the details on it are a little bit overstated, but it works in this scale, and the moulded in belts I don't mind. For the yellow areas, the zinc chromate areas, I also used Tamiya panel line accent colour this time, the brown, and the shaft running through there, that was painted in Mr. Colour brass. So the weights need to be attached to that before I actually fit everything together. Alright, they may fit in afterwards, I don't know, but they have little positions here, divots and cradles to hold them in, like so, and I'll glue them in, and I might pack a little bit of plasticine around them or something just to make sure they stay in place, and that all sits in there. It's a very nice touch adding these, and they are quite heavy. I do think they'll be heavy enough by themselves. Put them out the way. So added this little box here and a decal from the kit sheet goes on there, and here is the instrument panel, speaking of decals. So this was sprayed black, and then I added the kit decals to it, and I think it looks really rather good. They actually lined up with the dials fantastically well. When everything was dry, the decals all dried down, I sprayed the panel with VMS satin, and with that dry, I have picked out the dial glass with, I keep this bottle of Arma Hobby Aqua Gloss also Alclad Aqua Gloss. This stuff for me, from my point of view anyway, is pretty much useless for its intended role, but I keep it around because it's really handy for things like that, and I also use it to glue photo etch down sometimes as well. So I just use a small brush, little drops of that, because the raised detail on the panel is quite subtle, and just drop that in to give it that sort of slight reflective finish to differentiate where the dials actually are. So that does need to be fitted. The machine guns are done, that's all done. Right, so the doors, you might know they have masks on. I had a brainwave and actually looked at the included mask sheet, and as you can see there are 4 segments missing. The mask sheet includes pre-cut masks for the inside and outside of the door windows, so I will be, before this goes together, touching up around the inside of these frames with the XF26 to give them a nice internal finish. It does look better than the colour peeping through from the outside. And that's that. This is glued together now. I've glued it with Mr. Cement S, and that has been sitting and will keep on sitting for another day or so just to get fully hard, and then I will sort out the seams with super glue and talc where necessary, and re-drill the holes for the guns so that they're circular. I did forget to say, but I put the kit supplies, the wing guns, like so, to be fitted, to be trapped between the halves. I have removed the gun barrels. I fitted the back part, which keys into both the upper and lower surface, but I've removed the gun barrels and kept them to one side, and I'll use them to cut some suitable lengths of brass tube, or I might use the 3D printed ones I have here, and I'll insert them after it's built. Because I've added this bit, they'll stop at the appropriate point, because they'll hit that. Another point to note with test fitting, this assembly is very, very snug in here. You can see all these big sort of circular and semicircular mouldings on this half. These correlate to the points you can see on this completed cockpit interior, and especially these nose ones, they're very, very snug, to the point where you can squeeze the fuselage and it will stay closed because they're so tight on these lugs. So do be careful with the assembly of all of this if you build one, and make sure that it all lines up. I found it necessary to trim down these locating brackets for the front, for the nose gear well, align with these slots. Mine didn't quite align, or if they did, they weren't quite the right size, and they were causing the gear base sides to not sort of sit neatly up inside like they are now. But you can see it all does go together quite nicely with all that test fitting. You can also see here this little scar. I've actually removed a small piece of raised detail that was just here. That appeared to me to be causing a little bit of interference on the top of this piece here when I tried to fit the wing. It's quite tight in here, but now without that detail and with the previous modifications, it's not working very well because none of it's glued. There we go. It is fitting together about as well as it's going to, I think. And the other work that was done was more sub-assembly work. One of the key things when you're trying to make a model in a fairly tight schedule is sub-assemblies. If you get everything glued together as early as possible, it does help. It helps because you can get your test fitting done and out of the way early doors, and it also helps because you can allow time for that liquid cement to fully harden before you try and rectify the seams. Initial test fits of this tailplane assembly, I found that the fin wouldn't go all the way in because this tab was too deep, but on closer inspection I think the problem was actually that this slot here in the horizontal tailplane was flashed over, so I cleaned the flash out of the slot and that pushes down in there just fine, having done so. And then test fitting the horizontal tailplane to its area, I found that this fuselage half needed a little bit of trimming to allow it to sit square, but it does now sit in place quite nicely. It will need a little bit of tidying up, but it does fit. Okay, that's it for this one. Isn't it amazing how almost a whole day at the bench can distill into just a few minutes of chat about the modelling produced? I will crack on with this and hopefully in the next update at least have the fuselage together, if not the whole airframe. Thank you very much as always for watching, and with all of that said, I think it only remains for me to say until next time, look after yourselves, look after each other, and Genesis out.